Good morning, everybody. Lovely sunny Sunday morning here in Sydney. My apologies for not giving a commentary on Lecture 10 sooner. A number of things have been happening, including some work deadlines and some writing deadlines that I've had to catch up with this week, and some renos in our building making lots of noise. But here I am, trying to make a short commentary on Lecture 10, which is about how we can feel our aura around us. Shana talks about it as being a blue egg-shaped field of energy around us, a blue egg-shaped field of energy around us, and that this aura has in a way coalesced out of the bigger world of energy that he calls the astral world or the Akashic world. And the gesture is again that as the evolution of consciousness proceeds, that which is on the physical earth has coalesced out of consciousness. So matter follows consciousness, or we could say consciousness precedes matter and gives formation and complexity to matter. But the consequence of becoming more individualized and of the world becoming more material is that the human being has individualized out of knowing themselves to be integrated fully into the blue energy of the astral world. And so we see, as we are born, there is an astral sheath that comes around us, and he follows in these lectures very much the same process again and again, is that the evolution of consciousness is about creating individuals, pushing out that which is unuseful for our development, but then later on engaging with the physical world around us at present and learning to balance the energy, things that are in a way raising us to a further refinement of our soul, and then eventually our blue aura will expand and reintegrate with each other, and we will again become a unity of consciousness in the far distant future. The expanded, or the other kind of area that I think might be worthwhile looking at in the light of this lecture is what is substance. We see in this lecture he talks about a process of the coalescing, of the condensation of matter out of a more spiritual, a more refined energy of substance. And so we could ask ourselves, again, this is part of the idea of these little videos, is to ask ourselves, what are our philosophies? How do we broaden our philosophy about the world around us? What is matter, or what is substance? Are they just synonyms? Is substance and matter the same thing, or are they other levels of substance than just the material physical world? We tend to preference at present in the evolution of consciousness that everything is material, and we can tend to lose perceiving and working with more refined energy levels or more refined substance. So we've worked a little bit with that. We have a physical body, but we also have a life body, and that life body consists of a certain substance that Rudolf Steiner calls the etheric world. And more refined substances take place. For example, in these lectures he's trying to find a Western language for Eastern esoteric language. What is prana? Prana is a more refined substance than the etheric world. But he says in other places and here that the original, the most refined substance in our material world, in our current expression of the world's evolution, is that of Akasha. So out of the Akasha we are born, so to say, and as we are born and enter more and more deeply into the physical world, we take some of that substance and create an astral or a light aura around us, which has the form of a blue egg shape, and we can strengthen that astral body to help us find ourselves within the more refined substances of the world around us. So what is the Akasha substance that Steiner is talking about when he develops some of his own thoughts and philosophies further on from this lecture, we start to see that the Akasha is the substance that could be considered the wisdom body of all the earth. So the process of the evolution of consciousness, other entities, other devas, other gods, other whatever we call them, creator beings have had thoughts, they've done actions in bringing about the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of species, which work together. And that is inscribed, so to say, in the body of wisdom. And when an entity coalesces out of the spiritual world, all that wisdom is part of how we are formed. We are asked in other places to think, how is it that a bone such as the femur in the leg is so long and strong and yet so supple, and the architectonics of matter there is imbued by wisdom, or the wisdom of the bees to be able to build the hive in the way they do, with the hexagonal forms that they use, the minimal amount of matter to create this wonderful thing called the beehive, that that the world around us is actually imbued with wisdom. As we heard, that a previous expression of the earth is that of the evolution of understanding, the embodiment of wisdom. So we find a lot of wisdom, and this wisdom is held in a collective place that's known as the Akasha Chronicle. It's a substantial place, but everything that we then do and think and speak and say as human beings, also inscribed through our blue auric shell into the Akasha, into the more subtle substances of the world around us. And so we see this process of evolution where people are trying to understand that, yes, we live in the physical body, we are very individualized, and yet we have part of our substance, a more subtle substance known as the aura, which is where then our consciousness, our feelings, our words, our thoughts are inscribed. And as we then pass into the future between incarnations, as we die and come back, that what we have done, what we've said, what we've felt, what we've thought, is inscribed into these more subtle wisdom bodies of energy that then continue to coalesce into the future, new forms, new ways of being, and hopefully in the future new creatures. We will see that there is this process of evolution where certain things appear in the evolution. We then engage with these things substantially in the world around us, and as we reawaken certain faculties and virtues within us, there is the evolution then that takes place, and that includes the disappearing of species, but only because it has been reawakened through human consciousness. And this is part of the tragedy of our time, in a way, that species disappear before the human being can engage with them enough. So the greatest tragedy of our times possibly is that through the climate impact, through things that are happening, is that species disappear before what they have to bring and the lessons they have for the world to learn have not been learned, and that they disappear before that is awakened to a higher level through the aura of the human being. So again, a challenge to our consciousness as to what substance is. The sort of the least refined substance is the material world, and we have more and more refined substances with which we engage, the etheric, the astral, prana, and the akashic substances that out of which we are born, out of the wisdom, the collective wisdom of the universe. But everything that we do through the physical world, everything that we engage with the physical world and learn, so to say, through the suffering, through the mistakes of human life, can be added as a human wrought wisdom, so to say, into the future evolution of consciousness. Some of that obviously is not so wise in what we are doing, but that is part of what we are protected through the processes of reincarnation, is that not everything we do will take the world into its most positive future, but we can come back and rectify that and inscribe better and better into the aura, into the blue aura. So yes, we see the human being is like a small holograph of the universe, that we are not separate from it, and the way we are connected to the greater consciousness is through our auric shell, this blue auric shell, which is substantially very connected with the Akasha substance of the world. So that's an expanded commentary on this particular lecture. Sorry it's been so long since I gave one of these little talks. I will try to keep up with my deadlines, And with this, so we move on to lecture 11 this week. Hopefully soon, maybe Tuesday, I'll be able to give a commentary on lecture 11. We're about a third of the way through this lecture cycle, which becomes more and more complex, but its themes remain the same. Is how does the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of species work together, and what is the contribution of a human struggling, a human development, the process of ever refining our capacities, making mistakes? How does that contribute towards creating the future substantiality of how the earth and how we will express ourselves way into the future, where we're talking like long periods of time here. As we go through these lectures, you'll see that these periods of time, we're not talking short term, we're talking here billions of years, just as it has been billions of years in the making. We're at, in Steiner's point of view, we're at a very critical point in the evolution of the earth. We're at the most material level of consciousness, but through being the most material, we're also the most individualized, and have to work really hard to make sure that through our aura, through our substance of the Akasha that we have at our disposal, we can find our way back, so to say, into connection in human community, in spiritual community, both with the creation around us, the animals, the plants, the stones, and that through that we can begin to be creative into the future. I hope that all makes sense. But yeah, it's a very strong lecture cycle where Steiner himself is trying to work out and present in a way a cooperative understanding between Eastern esotericism, theosophical esotericism, Western esotericism, and slowly bringing mystical Christianity and the work of the spiritual sun into evolution as well. So more to come, and I hope you all have a good day. Cheers.